Welcome back to Fight Night.
All right, Reels, you were right. It's going to be the Warlock deck, and you were right again that it is the aggro Warlock deck.
Yeah, it's really, really solid overall. You know, it's something that gets played on ladder infinity times every day. It's not without cause. It definitely has a really solid proactive strategy. Life tap means that it gets to put constant pressure on this warrior class that sometimes struggles with AE, and as we already know, it doesn't have a brawl.
That's right, and the brawl actually a lot of times will save you against the Warlock deck, so could be difficult for him. We'll see. The game is going to be starting here in a moment, but before we talk any more about this upcoming game, I do want to bring up Puffin is the only player in this tournament, I think the only player ever with these rules, and I think probably the only player that ever will do this. He's using 6 classes instead of 5. What do you think about that choice?
You know, I actually had a chance to talk to Puffin about this earlier, and I don't necessarily think he's wrong. You know, one class you might think is certainly better than, you know, the best class is better than the 6th best class.
Yeah.
And you would like to play one a second time amongst, you know, what you know how to play. Puffin said he's good with a lot of classes.
He does play a lot of different decks online, so.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people have seen him stream. He definitely does. He, you know, jumps around. And, you know, he said he's good with a lot of classes. And what that meant was that he could cover his other deck's holes in a way that was better than simply doubling something.
Okay, yeah, I understand the covering the holes thing, because he was mentioning that he just like didn't have one that he liked more than the others. He thought they were all very similar in power level overall. But what you're saying here actually makes a lot more sense to me. So
yeah, and you know, we've seen more than 6 classes played as well.
We have seen every class played.
And you know, we've
Isn't
seen,
that crazy?
I think maybe we've even seen every class win. Maybe not Priest yet.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen Priest win. And other than that, I think, yeah, you're right. We've seen every single class win. And you know, that's like a first, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're definitely pulling out all the stops. You know, all the matches have been ridiculously close so far.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is so far a good series. Puffin holding on as long as he can, or as long as he could in the last game. He has no 1-drop in this game, but you know, we'll see what he can start pulling out.
You couldn't ask for a better hand than what we're seeing from DuckWingFace. Like,
yeah, if there's
that's
one
so
card,
good.
If there's one card in all of the warrior control deck that you want to have every time against aggro warlock, it is without question that fiery war axe. He's got it. Unfortunately, Soulfire takes out his armor smith, so the blowout isn't going to happen. Puffin definitely still in the game. He even discards his weakest card.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's going to leave a little bit less of a good play than he would have had. You know, Fiery War Axe taking down the front end of the Golem, Armor Smith taking down the back end and staying in play as a 1-2 would have been absolutely sick.
Yeah.
Frothing Berserker, still a good play. He still has a very good hand against aggro. And, you know, it's definitely on Puffin to see what happens.
It certainly is. I like what I'm seeing here, but you know what? The Abusive Sergeant is something that's going to help him out a lot here if he does want to play that board control style, which I think at this point in this game is absolutely what he should be doing.
Yeah, for sure.
He needs to be removing these threats because he can continue to draw cards, whereas if you slow down the warrior deck and make him go towards the end game where, you know, he's used up a lot of his early game, he's going to have a hard time removing everything.
He definitely will, and you know, there's really no amazing play as far as removal goes here for Duckwing. You know, Puffin definitely, you know, puts him in a very sort of tense spot. He, you know, is just going to play the Yeti. It's almost certainly the right play. But Puffin has a lot of things that, you know, can contend with that Yeti. It's definitely not the giant monster it sometimes is. And, you know, this is going to be really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Once this gets removed.
I quite like what I'm seeing here. This was a great move, and he even gets to draw the card there. You know, somehow Puffin has every single answer he needs.
He does, and you know, I wonder if he'll start playing around Brawl. I think he'll end up playing this Shield Bearer and decide that, you know, Brawl on these relatively smaller minions is not something he wants to worry about. Yeah. It's interesting to note that he could have used the Harvest Golem in the same way as he did the Abusive Sergeant #1 in order to take down the Yeti, but what he's doing is he's playing around Whirlwind.
Yeah,
so
as well as Brawl. It's actually a good play around Brawl as well.
Any, you know, sort of AE removal, you know, the 2/1 Abusive Sergeant would have died anyways, and so Puffin could have one more creature in play, but the double life at this point is worth more to him than, you know, the extra early pressure.
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely the right call here.
Yeah.
So still have some very good cards in hand here for DuckWingFace. He continues to draw cards that are going to be pretty useful. Other than that, use Sarah for now.
Yeah, definitely the, I think he should probably just be playing the Cruel Taskmaster on the Abusive Sergeant.
I would have done that as well, yeah.
But, he gets the Armorsmith out there. It is going to be difficult, to remove without using both of his current minions. Perhaps, that's kind of the tension that he's going for. And, maybe it'll work. I don't know. He just wants the extra 1 damage in place so that he can use the axe to take down that Shield Bearer next turn.
And that looks like it probably is what's going to happen, because looking at this hand, there isn't really a good buff strategy to get rid of this 1/4 Armorsmith, so...
Yeah, there's not. I mean, Puffin is not even remotely out of gas. He's sitting at 28 life. He doesn't have, a blowout turn this turn, but he does get to, build that pressure, build his board. There will, of course, be no brawl to worry about, so... it's definitely going to be, interesting how he decides to go about it.
Would you assume no brawl at this point as Puffin?
Now, I wouldn't necessarily assume no brawl. His opponent does only have 3 cards left. I think it's not whether you think your opponent has brawl or not.
Well, I mean, like in his hand. Would you assume no brawl in hand at this point?
From Puffin's perspective, he's probably decided whether or not he thinks he can beat brawl. And if he believes that he can beat brawl, he would play around it. If he thinks that he can't beat brawl, you pretend it doesn't exist, cross your fingers, hope they don't have it, and just go all in.
Yeah. All right, so looks like he did choose to take out that Armorsmith, really playing the board control Warlock style at the moment.
Yeah.
Kind of an interesting way that he went about it.
Another interesting way that he went about it was that, he could have used the Shattered Sun Cleric to buff his Harvest Golem and make it a 3/2. When it attacked, it would have been a 3/1 and still had the Death Rattle. Instead, he lets the Harvest Golem die and turns the back end into a 3/2. I don't know whether he's playing around, Whirlwind, or, he wants to retain the buff as long as possible, or something like that.
Well, I think even putting the Amani down is a good play against any Whirlwind type attacks. So I didn't actually like the buff on the Harvest Golem. I actually think I would have preferred to see that on the Shield Bearer even, just because you do have that War Axe out on your opponent's side. But anyways, this is what he chooses to do.
And it looks like he's probably going to continue to play around Whirlwind. He's going to take out the Cruel Taskmaster with the Amani Berserker. He's buffed it, and all of his minions are, immune to Whirlwind at this point. Really, Brawl is the only card that he doesn't want to see. Puffin does have enough life. He draws Execute, but he's 1 mana short from Gorehowl and Execute. He might just Faceless Manipulate or something and Execute.
Probably the Golem.
That damage threat is so high.
Yeah.
If he keeps his life high enough, Gorehowl might be able to help him climb back into the game.
Yeah, I mean, Gorehowling a couple minions as well as letting this Harvest Golem take out a couple minions. He's going to be able to get into a reasonable position, but he's taking a lot of damage in the meantime, so that's going to be a bit scary.
Yeah, he's taking a ton of damage. Puffin won't be out of gas for about 1,000,000 years, considering he's, starting this turn at 28 life.
Yeah.
He's drawing 2 a turn from now until the game ends. And, that's going to be a really, really difficult, uphill climb for Duckwing. Just that fact that he doesn't have that brawl is going to make it so difficult to climb back into the game. Even if he had a brawl, he might not necessarily have drawn it by now.
Yeah.
And, last turn was really the turn that he would have wanted to slam it. Puffin's thinking right now possibly about that.
He's definitely thinking about Brawl. The fact that he did not play this Knife Juggler, he is sitting there and he's saying, okay, Baron Geddon and Brawl are the 2 issues here. And he's just saving a little bit of gas in his hand so that he can repopulate that board really, really quickly against such a thing.
Yeah, and, Duckwing is going to be able to bash down a couple creatures here. In theory, if the back end of his... Harvest Golem were able to trade with something favorably, that would be great. Of course, his opponent has a Harvest Golem of his own that's probably going to stop that. But he has Alexstrasza in his hand, which means that as long as he gets that, you can use the Gorehowl to make the life damage coming in, slowly trickle down.
Yeah,
maybe Alexstrasza really like back to 15 from low.
If he plays Gorehowl, kills one of these minions, doesn't die next turn, kills another minion, goes Alexstrasza, suddenly he has a very strong board, a good weapon, and a reasonable life total at 15.
Yeah, and, he's sitting at 15. There's a Doomguard, so, if he had played the Knife Juggler before, he would have been able to life tap. After playing the Doomguard, as it stands, he still gets to play both minions. He doesn't get the juggle that he wants, but he still has, of course, that Harvest Golem that's probably going to take out... God, he can get his opponent to 1. But, there's probably just almost no way for Duckwing to get back into this. Even, he would have to gore howl, you know,
I don't
something.
even. Pretty sure nothing does it here. Oh, no.
You should definitely hit the at least the harvest golem first.
I would think so. Unless he wants to do this, then hit the knife juggler. That's the only other way that this would make any sense, right?
Yeah, I mean,
because the knife juggler is worth way more than 3 damage. Like, that knife juggler should do a little bit more than that, like 4 damage on average next turn.
Even if he somehow survived this turn, Puffin has, you know, somewhere around infinity outs remaining in his deck to deal additional damage beyond what's currently on board. He still has another Doom Guard. He still has Leroy Jenkins. I think he discarded his Power Overwhelming, but there's still 1 Soulfire left as well. There's just tons of ways to pick up damage. You know, double Argent Squire would be like the only blanks.
Argent Squire number 1. Young Priestess.
Young Priestess. So
well,
he does get a couple
blanks,
blanks.
Kind of. Still, though, the life total is going so...
1 damage short?
So low. 5, 8,
no, he has
11,
13 damage.
12, 13.
Yeah, he's dead.
Oh, never mind. Okay.
So Puffin's going to count it up. He's going to double check, triple check, quadruple check, make sure that his opponent is dead. Whammo.
And that is it. Puffin takes game number 2 here, tying it up 1-1.
You know, he dug for the outs that didn't even need. Of course, you know, DuckWing knew exactly what was going on. He knew he was dead, but
hoping
not
maybe
over till it's
against
over.
hope that his opponent does not go for lethal.
Yeah.
That happens to the best of us at times. Now, I gotta say, you know, there's been a lot of talk about Warrior versus Warlock recently, and how a lot of top players are starting to say exactly as you said, that the Warlock is going to be a good matchup against Warrior. And I think that game really shows it and proves it and like double underlines it and bolds it and italicizes it, because he had really, I couldn't have hoped for a better opening hand from the Warrior, and he still didn't have what it took to stay alive.
Yeah, you know, it actually would have been a completely different game. A completely different game if it weren't for the fact that, you know, Puffin had the Soulfire, discarding the best possible card.
Yeah.
The discard was less relevant, but just the fact that he had the Soulfire on top of the start that he had, DuckWing would have been able to outright counter what he had going. If it weren't for that, you know, he would have been able to kill both ends of the Harvest Golem and still had his creature and an axe in play, ready to go. It would have been an uphill climb for Puffin. Instead, it was the other way around. Soulfire.
Really solid play there from Puffin, I have to say. So, you know, that's going to be it for this moment with us. We're going to throw it over the couches and see what these players are talking about.
And then I also didn't want him to just win the board there if I had just gone face. Sorry. Yeah.
What to say?
I don't want him to just like win the board there, because everything was. There was another misplay. I was like thinking about it. Like I played totally into getting it.
Would be
really
great,
sucked.
actually.
And then I also didn't want him to just win the board there if I had just gone face. Sorry. Yeah.
What to say?
I don't want him to just like win the board there, because everything was. There was another misplay. I was like.
So DuckWingFace going for Priest.
You know, I think it's actually a good decision. It's his favorite class. He's sort of a, you know, one of a couple champions. He's like the European champion of Priest, maybe Amaz or something like that.
Era, I would say, is probably the best NA Priest that I've seen.
Amaz Era. There are a few Priest players out there. DuckWingFace is one of them. He's bringing it back out. This is actually his double class, and this is a good spot to bring it out in. You know, one thing that he didn't have last time was the Brawl, that sweeper, to try to catch back up.
He really needed that too. That was an important thing. There just got to be too much out there.
The Priest, it's got it. It's a 2-card combination, but they have sweepers abound, and it might be enough.
And I got to tell you what as well, even if he had drawn a Baron Geddon at some of those points, it would have been very helpful. And he does have 2 Holy Novas, rather. So that's something that could, if the healths line up, could help him out quite a bit.
Yeah, the game is starting as we speak. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the players have for their starting hands. And
it's interesting. DuckWingFace X'd off his Shadow Word Pain. What do you think about that? I feel like you'd keep that.
I think he is going to end up keeping it. You know, the fact that he has the coin will probably, you know, make him keep it. It's a 1-for-1 trade, but sometimes you need it. And
I feel like there's so many Priest turn 2s where it's like you just heal yourself or something. I just love to use that on Jugs. Like, he is the prime target for that card.
You know, he's got the Ancient Watcher in hand, though, and maybe he's trying to make sure, as best he can, to find an enabler.
Hey, there you go. I guess it worked out.
Yeah, the Ancient Watcher, can trade, better than 2 for 1 sometimes even with smaller creatures. So,
especially if you're healing it up, it definitely can.
For sure.
Of course, I don't think they're going to attack straight into it if it's just sitting there taunted, but he's going to be able to get a big taunt very quickly. Definitely going to slow his opponent down.
Yeah, Puffin does have an answer. He has more than one answer now, actually. I don't know if he'll go for it right now. He'll probably smash in for 3 first, but he'll have the option available to him next turn. The Soulfire was going to be one of his ways out, but now, he might not even need the Soulfire now that he's got the Abusive Sword.
Is he going to run right into that? I think he is. I think he's going to run into the Ancient Watcher. No, he's going for face.
He doesn't.
Here's the thing. When you coin out Ancient Watcher, it means that the next turn you're enabling it. Almost always.
Almost always. You're absolutely right.
I think that was a mistake. Maybe. But, he can still kill it. It's not like this is an unkillable thing for him.
It's certainly not unkillable. He has the option of Soulfiring. The only real problem with the Soulfire is that if he wants to go for Soulfire, he has to either life tap and throw away one of the 3 cards. Both of the ones in his hand are very good. He could use the Shattered Sun Cleric now, but then he'd be getting rid of his Doom Guard and not even life tapping into another card.
Well, I think that's what he's going to be going for here.
I wouldn't be surprised if he buffs the 3/2 instead of that Abusive Sergeant. Turn it into a 4/3. That way he can take down, the Sun Fury Protector after he Soulfires the Ancient Watcher. It's still a massive wall in his way, but he'll be able to clear it out. He'll just be down to almost no cards.
Well, if he buffs this, it means that he wants to go ahead and kill off this 4/5 using it. But I do like what you said about actually clearing the minion, because if he doesn't do that, then that Sun Fury starts to go to work.
Yeah, at this point, it means that the Sun Fury trades 1 for 1 with a creature, and he's still vulnerable to sweepers either way. The fact that your minion might only end up at 1 health is not really a problem. Oh, he even draws Power Word Shield, which is going to let him 2 for 1.
That's really, really nice, I would say.
It is very, very nice. He might be thinking about Circle of Healing now. I don't think he wants to do that. I think he should hold the Northshire Cleric. The Circle of Healing represents, at this point, considering Puffin is almost completely gassed out, nearly a game ender if he draws Auchenai Soul Priest.
Yeah, I have to agree with you completely there. And in fact, I think he attacks in with this and then heals the Sun Fury and just passes the turn. I think that's the best play he can make.
Yeah, he can keep it at 4 life,
health,
which
really
again
good.
represents another 2 for 1. So simply killing a creature and healing seems really, really good. He's still going to have a Twilight Drake to follow it up next turn. And, he's not out of the woods yet. Puffin is going to be able, he's still at a very healthy 20 life. So, DuckWingFace, for all of the good that he has right now, is, still going to be very, very tough, but it seems like a solid play.
He's thinking about healing himself here. I think overall, just healing the 2/2, as we said before, might be a little bit better. But he is worried about his life total, which, you do have to watch out for that life total. Most priest decks don't have a lot of taunts going on, so you just kind of have to proactively keep it high.
Yeah, and, he would be going down to, 12 life from what he knew, and maybe that's just too low for him. Now his opponent has a massive amount of taunts, and now the Auchenai Soul Priest basically must come soon, or else Duck is going to
Oh, what did you say?
I think I said Auchenai Soul Priest.
And it had to come when?
Soon?
Well, look at that.
Soon is now. Call it Blizzard.
What is going on? All right, that was such an important moment because he was basically dead if he did not get that or some other really good clear. So good for him to get it.
And he's still not out of the woods. The Soulfire actually means that, the Soul Priest is not going to be able to 2 for 1 next turn.
That's not what he wanted to draw.
Instead of Soulfire,
yeah.
I can't say that I agree. It means that, the Soul Priest is going to stay in play.
That was really greedy, I think.
It's not actually going to, maybe he wants the Soul Priest to live.
So that he can't gain life.
So that he can't gain life. That could be Puffin's reasoning. It's not unreasonable either. He's actually 2 damage away from killing him.
That's true. That's actually a very good point. In fact, wouldn't mind seeing well, should he life tap? Yeah, he should. And
he should.
I guess you just play Amani plus the Young Priestess. And they'll both be cleaned up.
At this
But
point,
again, he's very close to killing him.
at this point, until he just outright dies, Puffin should probably just dig for the win. Young Priestess and Amani Berserker, he should probably just play him out now. They're not going to be anything useful except for speed bumps for his opponent. Try to preserve enough life to life tap into the win.
Well, we'll see what he can end up drawing. I mean, it feels pretty obvious that he needs to play those 2 cards. I think he is considering playing Leroy. That's the only other thing he can be thinking about, right? Or, you know what? He might be thinking about using Soulfire. I don't like it, though.
He could Soulfire the Soul Priest now, but it just seems so much worse than last turn. And
not just that, if you lose Leroy, that's like the game starting to really slip away because you really need burst damage to finish this priest off. Eventually, he's going to draw like a Holy Fire or something. It's going to get out of control.
Oh, he draws a silence. He can silence his Arcanine Soul Priest and heal himself.
I really like that play.
He'll even pick up a card. He might be able to find something like a Holy Nova for next turn, and like Holy Nova heal next turn for an additional 4 even. Might put this game out of reach.
Yeah.
As it stands, if he silences his Soul Priest and heals himself, we've got to imagine he's at least thinking about it. He could do that after Thought Steal, so maybe he'll see what he gets first. He could pick up like a Shield Bearer off the Thought Steal.
That's true.
That would actually be pretty sick.
That would be a pretty sick card to pick up for sure. I don't like him healing the priest. I really want to see him heal himself here. I feel like
he would heal himself. He would heal.
Hey, there you go.
Voidwalker.
That's good.
Pretty much exact samesies. He does silence his Soul Priest. He knows what's up. Priest, it's his class. He's not going to miss on that.
This is rough. Having this 1/3 out there has just changed everything.
Yeah, this game, just went from reachable to almost certainly completely out of reach.
Yeah.
Previously he was 2 away from lethal. Now he's 4. He could have gotten something like Power Overwhelming if it weren't for the Voidwalker in his way.
Yeah. Oh, man. And you know what? I do have to go back to the Amani and Young Priestess not being played. He'd be at a much higher life total right now. And he'd just be feeling better about the entire world at this moment. But as is, he's like really close to dead.
Now that the Voidwalker is in his way, Puffin only has a couple choices here. I think if I were in his seat, I would probably just Doomguard and hope I discarded the exact right 2 cards. Instead, he discards the Young Priestess. That's good for him. He's probably going to play out the other 2. He can't play both of his charge creatures next turn, though.
Yeah.
So
he's going to be 1 mana off that.
He also has both of his Soulfires out of the deck. So, Power Overwhelming is his only super big burst. He has 1 more Abusive Sergeant. After that, the additional damage isn't really going to have anywhere to come from. He does get that Holy Nova.
Oh, man. That Holy Nova is so good. And, the Holy Fire. That's the nail in the coffin right there. There's not going to be 16 damage done next turn, which means he is going to gain, and he's going to have 8 mana. So he is actually going to gain like 7 life next turn. It's just too much.
Yeah, Duckwing decides that going up to 18 is the better play. He has the Holy Fire. His opponent, if he really commits whatever resources he has left into killing the Twilight Drake, he's probably going to lose anyways. Duckwing realizes that, at this point the writing is almost on the wall. He does have a Voidwalker to get in the way now, but, Puffin's just hanging on by a thread.
Seriously, at 6 life, though, with Holy Fire in hand, I think that this is already lethal, right?
6 is really, really close. I mean, he needs 1 more damage, and he's going to have it because he has it from the Northshire Cleric.
Northshire Cleric, hero card.
The writing isn't on the wall anymore.
It's
going on.
It's in the stone slab. That is it. And Priest wins its first game of the tournament, I believe.
Hey, there you go.
So DuckWingFace showing that his Beast deck definitely can roll with some of these top decks if given the right draw. That Arcanine, we do have to point out, was a bit lucky. He really did need that card right then, but it came, and he cleaned it up from there.
Yeah, it's certainly is by design. Of course, you don't want to be top decking it. You usually want to try to, prepare it, but it was what needed to happen. Those are the cards in the deck. They're there for a reason. Happy to have a top deck come out for Duckwing and even up the series.
Well, that leaves Puffin obviously on just his very last deck, which is going to be a Shaman deck. Just your general thoughts.
That's up 2-1.
Yeah, 2-1 now for DuckWingFace. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Shaman against Priest just overall?
So it's definitely a very, very interesting matchup. I think that it might favor Priest a little bit. If it does favor it a little bit, it's not massive. It really depends on what both people draw. The reason why is because a lot of the priest cards are based on counterplay, and so if you draw the wrong answers for the questions they're asking, you don't end up gaining any big advantage, as where there can be massive game swinging plays if the things they play walk into what you have.
Yeah, quite true. And one thing I really do like about priest against shaman is that I feel like there's infinity targets for your Cabal Shadow Priest. I think that's a very strong card in the matchup. A lot of times you're grabbing a wolf. Worst case scenario, you grab a reasonable totem.
Sure.
But still.
Or perhaps you get an amazing totem and you start drawing like a madman.
That's true.
Hey,
that's happened before in the past. So, well, we're going to have to see. Let's go ahead and throw it over the couches and see what these guys are thinking right now.
All right, so we're here with DuckWingFace. And I may have been a bit harsh on the predictions against you, but here you are, up 2-1. And Puffin is a pretty sizable opponent who's already packed in a win. How do you feel right now?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. It may have looked like I got a bit lucky, but early on I drew a couple of dead cards in that matchup. Normally the priest does very well in against aggro. The problem is you need synergy between your cards, so yeah, which I didn't get in my starting hand, but eventually I got what I needed to turn the game around. So
isn't the main concept of priest like you draw a bunch of dead cards anyway, but the cards that aren't dead are more effective than most?
Normally you could say that, yes. The short answer is yes.
Okay, well, you managed to pull off a win with a priest, and that hasn't been done this tournament so far, and it's a bit different than the others, and there's a lot more aggressive decks, especially from the other teams. So.
Yeah. The next match is going to be against the shaman, which priest should do pretty well against, considering some of the priest cards, like Cabals, for example. Pretty good card.
I gotta ask you, how do you feel about the doubling up on the priest now that you've already played it a little bit in both
no,
weeks?
last season I was really nervous, so I feel like I didn't play as I normally would have. But hopefully this will show that I can actually do it.
All right. Well, you win the next game. You guys have officially won, but the 5-0 dream is still alive.
It's still alive.
So
going for it.
Yeah, you got to be a bit hungry for that one.
Yes.
No one's been quite that hungry yet. So we'll see what happens. Puffin, man, I thought you'd crush this guy. I mean, what happened? I thought your team morale was up and doing well, and you were pretty much the best player in the universe, except maybe for Kit Kats, who maybe was the best player on the team. I don't know how that worked out, but how do you feel right now losing to a priest, first of the tournament?
He got the Soul Priest and he had the combo. I mean, that's like the only way he could win that matchup. And I thought I had him on the ropes, and I had a couple of draws when he had his Soul Priest out. He couldn't heal anymore, so I just needed to top deck 2 more damage, and then I would have won. So it happens sometimes.
Yep. Well, that didn't happen. Yeah. Oh well. I wanted to ask you about your shirt. I noticed that you've been wearing this shirt for almost 2 weeks now. Is it because you have based a lot of your luck in it? Do you think it carry you to your first win, and maybe can carry you to a comeback in this one? Put a point on your team's board?
It's definitely a lucky shirt, and I'm gonna keep wearing it. I haven't lost a series yet, so I'll just keep wearing it until I lose.
And if you do lose, what will happen to this masterpiece?
I have many of these shirts, so it's all good.
All right, well, feel sorry for the shirt if you lose, but we'll see what that will be like.
Stay tuned for more Fight Night.